It ran for 12 seasons. It made its lead actor the highest paid performer on American television. And then, that same actor was fired, publicly, messily, in a way that generated more press coverage than most films. The replacement hired to save the show became so unhappy that he spent part of his final season telling audiences not to watch it. And the creator ended the series by dropping a piano on a character who looked exactly like the man who had spent months attacking him publicly. That was 2.5 Men, the most watched comedy on American television for much of its run, and one of the most chaotic productions in the history of the medium. Today, 15 facts about 2.5 Men, from the casting decisions that almost gave us completely different leads, to the real-life chaos that made the tabloids look understated, to the bonus that explains the finale in a way that makes the whole thing finally make sense. Stick around. Fact 1. The show was built around a character written specifically for Charlie Sheen. 2.5 Men was created by Chuck Lorre and Lee Aronson, and from the beginning, the character of Charlie Harper was written with Charlie Sheen's specific persona in mind. The hard-drinking, womanizing, effortlessly charming man-child who coasts through life on talent and luck. Sheen wasn't handed a character to inhabit. He was handed a version of his public reputation and asked to play it slightly to the left. The arrangement worked spectacularly. The show premiered in September 2003, and within 2 seasons had become the most watched comedy on American television. By 2010, Sheen was earning $1.8 million per episode, the highest per-episode salary in television history at that point. The character and the actor were so fully merged that it became genuinely difficult to determine where one ended and the other began. Fact 2. John Cryer almost didn't get the role of Alan. John Cryer was not the obvious choice for Alan Harper, the neurotic, financially ruined chiropractor who moves into his brother's beach house. The character required a specific kind of comedy, self-deprecating, slightly pathetic, always the butt of the joke, in a way that not every actor can sustain across 12 seasons without becoming unwatchable. Cryer auditioned and was not immediately the frontrunner. What eventually persuaded producers was his specific gift for humiliation, his ability to be completely destroyed by a scene and still generate sympathy rather than contempt. He won 2 Emmy Awards for the role. The actor who wasn't the obvious choice became the most indispensable person in the cast. Fact 3. Angus T. Jones was one of the highest-paid child actors in television history. Jake Harper was played by Angus T. Jones from the show's premiere until his departure in season 10. By the time Jones was a teenager, he was earning approximately $350,000 per episode, making him one of the highest-paid child actors in American television history. The trajectory followed an unusual arc. By his late teens, he had become a born-again Christian and developed serious reservations about the show's content. In 2012, he gave an online interview describing the show as filth and urging viewers not to watch it, while still under contract and still receiving his per-episode fee. He departed after season 10. Fact 4. Charlie Sheen's firing generated more coverage than most major news events. The circumstances surrounding Charlie Sheen's departure in March 2011 constitute one of the most documented celebrity meltdowns in American entertainment history. The sequence involved public statements of increasing incoherence, a feud with Chuck Lorre conducted partly through single-frame vanity cards at the end of episodes, hospitalizations, and a live tour called the Torpedo of Truth that was received with bewilderment. Warner Brothers and CBS fired Sheen in March 2011 with 8 episodes of the season unproduced. The firing generated sustained media coverage that temporarily displaced other news stories. Sheen's response was a public campaign against Lorre on social media that attracted millions of followers and settled nothing. Fact 5. Ashton Kutcher was hired within 48 hours of the decision to continue the show. After Sheen's firing, conventional wisdom held that 2.5 Men was finished. The show had been built around its star in a way that made replacement seem impossible. Chuck Lorre decided to continue it anyway. Ashton Kutcher was approached, negotiated, and hired within approximately 48 hours. He was paid $700,000 per episode. His character, Walden Schmidt, was a billionaire internet entrepreneur who arrives at Charlie Harper's beach house immediately after Harper's death. The transition was handled by killing the previous lead off-screen and having the new character buy his house. It was not subtle, and it worked well enough to keep the show running for 4 more seasons. Fact 6. The creator's feud with Sheen was embedded in the episodes themselves. Chuck Lorre's vanity cards, the brief text screens appearing for a single frame at the end of each episode, became a running commentary on the Sheen situation as it deteriorated. Lorre used them to respond to Sheen's public statements and to process his own feelings about the production in ways that couldn't be said on air. The cards Cards were technically invisible to audiences watching in real time, but became widely read once internet culture made pausing and screenshotting routine. The feud was therefore conducted simultaneously in public statements, in tabloid coverage, and in single-frame text screens at the end of a primetime comedy, a multi-platform argument with no clean resolution. Fact 7. The Malibu Beach House set was one of the most expensive standing sets in television. The interior of Charlie Harper's beach house was built on a Warner Brothers soundstage and maintained throughout the run. The set was designed to feel genuinely lived in. Furniture, artwork, and props that established Charlie's character before he said a word. The cost of maintaining a standing set of that scale over 8 seasons was substantial. Its destruction, metaphorically with Sheen's firing, literally when modified for Kutcher's arrival, felt like the end of something specific. Television sets are usually functional rather than meaningful. This one had become part of the show's identity. Fact 8. The show was the most watched comedy on American television for 5 consecutive seasons. At its peak, 2.5 Men drew approximately 15 million viewers per episode, figures representing extraordinary commercial dominance in the fragmented media landscape of the mid-2000s. The show held the top position in American comedy television for 5 consecutive seasons. Critical reception was considerably more reserved than the ratings suggested. Television critics frequently dismissed the show as crude and formulaic. The audience disagreed at scale. The gap between critical assessment and popular response was wide enough to become a running industry discussion about what television comedy was actually for. The highest paid actor in television history, a child performer who publicly condemned his own show while still cashing the checks, a firing that displaced actual news, and a replacement hired in 48 hours. We're not halfway through. Still coming. The lawsuit, the only cast member who survived the entire run, and the bonus that explains the finale, in which the creator dropped a piano on a character who spent months attacking him publicly. Fact 9. Charlie Sheen sued Warner Brothers for $100 million. Following his firing, Sheen filed a lawsuit against Warner Brothers Television and Chuck Lorre seeking $100 million in damages, alleging breach of contract related to the circumstances of his termination. The legal action generated substantial coverage, mostly because Sheen conducted it simultaneously with a public media campaign that made the formal proceedings look almost restrained by comparison. The lawsuit was eventually settled out of court for an undisclosed sum. The settlement resolved the formal legal dispute without resolving the public feud, which continued in various forms for years afterward. Fact 10. The show launched one of the longest-running comedies in CBS history. The Big Bang Theory, which premiered in 2007 and ran until 2019, was created by Chuck Lorre and Bill Prady and produced by the same team behind 2.5 Men. It emerged from the same production infrastructure, the same network relationship, and the same creative philosophy. The Big Bang Theory eventually surpassed 2.5 Men in both longevity and cultural reach, running for 12 seasons and generating its own spin-off in Young Sheldon. Chuck Lorre built 2 of the longest-running comedies in CBS history from the same production base, an achievement the public chaos of the Sheen years tends to overshadow. Fact 11. Jon Cryer was the only cast member to appear in every single episode. Through Sheen's departure, Jones's reduced role, and Kutcher's arrival, one cast member maintained continuous presence across all 12 seasons: Jon Cryer. Alan Harper appeared in every episode from the pilot to the finale. The longevity transformed Alan from comic relief into something more interesting. A character whose sustained humiliation across 12 years became its own kind of story. By the finale, Alan Harper had outlasted 2 lead characters, 3 different show dynamics, and a complete reconstruction of the series around him. The butt of the joke survived everyone. Fact 12. The show was filmed in front of a live audience, a deliberate countercultural choice. 2.5 Men was filmed in front of a live audience at a time when the single-camera, no-laugh track format was becoming increasingly associated with critical prestige. Chuck Lorre was an advocate for this format when it was becoming unfashionable. His argument was practical. A live audience provided immediate feedback that single-camera production couldn't replicate, and the energy of performing for real people shaped performances in ways that editing couldn't manufacture. The most watched comedy on television was made using a format critics considered. Fact 13. Melanie Lynskey appeared in the pilot and was brought back for the finale. Melanie Lynskey, who played Rose, the obsessive neighbor who becomes a recurring presence, appeared in the very first episode and returned for the series finale. Her character begins as a comic stalker figure, and ends in the finale as the person responsible for Charlie Harper's death. Linsky's performance gave Rose a quality, genuinely unsettling beneath the comedic surface, that distinguished her from the show's more broadly drawn figures. Her return for the finale closed a loop that had been open for 12 years. Fact 14. The finale was watched by 13 million viewers, and confused most of them. The series finale, broadcast in February 2015, built toward a moment in which Charlie Harper returned to his beach house only to be killed by a falling piano before he could enter. The final shot showed Chuck Lorre standing on the set, looking directly at the camera, before a second piano fell on him. It was an unusually direct piece of authorial self-insertion, a creator ending his show by staging the death of the character who represented his most publicly difficult professional relationship, then staging his own death alongside it. Approximately 13 million viewers watched, most of whom spent the following days debating what had just happened. Fact 15. Charlie Sheen was offered his role back before the finale and declined. Before the finale was produced, Chuck Lorre reportedly extended an invitation to Charlie Sheen to return as Charlie Harper. Sheen declined. The reasons were not made fully public, though the years of mutual public hostility provided context that required little explanation. The decision meant the finale had to find a different way to close the Harper story, which it did by killing him off screen, staging a brief appearance by a figure seen only from behind, and then dropping a piano on him. The ending the finale got was arguably more interesting than the one a Sheen return would have produced. And now the bonus I've been saving for last. The piano in the finale was not a random choice. It was a callback. In the early seasons, a piano in Charlie Harper's beach house was one of the show's most consistent visual elements, an instrument he played that defined his character's identity, that appeared in the background of countless scenes. The piano was as much a part of the set as the furniture. When Chuck Lorre chose to end the series by killing Charlie Harper with a falling piano, he was reaching back to the beginning of the show, using the object most associated with the character to destroy him. And then, by dropping a second piano on himself in the final frame, he was acknowledging something that had always been true, that 2.5 Men was as much about Chuck Lorre's relationship with his own creation as it was about anything on screen. The man who built the show, lost control of it, and rebuilt it around a different star, ended it by killing both the character and himself. As finales go, it is one of the more honest things American television has produced.